All right. Thank you very much for having us here. Thank you, Sylvia, for the wonderful introduction. We've come a long way from home, but it's a privilege, and we're very grateful for the opportunity. Today, I very much look forward to tell you guys a little bit more about what we have been doing here, together with our partners, DNP and MasterCard, in order to try to establish a bank-agnostic technology infrastructure for CLO in Japan. But before I do that, I would probably start by just introducing you guys to Fidel API, and what we do in other parts of the world. So, our mission has always been to accelerate the adoption of card linking by making financial data more accessible. More broadly speaking, we want to make it so easy for our partners to access financial data so that they can just focus on building innovative products and not have to worry about making the connectivity work. We believe that financial data is ultimately going to be the glue that binds together the online and offline world of commerce. But accessing data, this data, can be quite challenging for various reasons. If I were to build a card-linked application, I would first need to extract that payment data. And for natural reasons, it's quite hard to get hold of that data. So first and foremost, I would have to go to the source and try to convince them to share that data with me. So that would be either the issuer or the acquirer or the payment networks. That in itself can be quite a challenging task. But once we've gone past that, comes the really daunting task of actually making that connection. Most of these institutions operate their own legacy technology stacks, and it all requires very specialized skills to make that integration going. So you would expect to have about 5 to 7 people on each side of the integration. Also, the source of the data is rarely in one place. So you would have to do multiple complex integrations with multiple providers. And the integration itself can take somewhere between 12 and 18 months. Also, because we're dealing with people's card details, it's obviously sensitive data, you also need to be PCI compliant. And I'm sure most of you in this room know that PCI DSS is quite a rigorous data security framework that also takes a lot of time, a lot of effort, and can be quite costly to maintain. Third point is that because of the complex nature of the integration, it comes at quite a high price tag. So you would generally be looking at a 6-figure in dollars, so a couple of $100,000 in setup fees. You would look at a couple of $100,000 in revenue guarantees annually just to make the business case worthwhile. So before you've even started building, you've actually committed to several $1 million or $1 million at least in cost. So we've experienced this firsthand. This makes the data quite inaccessible for many companies. And it was out of this frustration that Fidel API was born. So our role in the ecosystem is to remove these obstacles for everybody involved, in particular our partners. So Fidel API provides a single integration point whereby our partners can connect with data providers within an afternoon. So just gonna get this going. Yeah, so as you guys know, we take care of all the kind of wiring in the background so that our customers can just make one simple connection and get started straight away. This is how easy it really is. This simple snippet of code behind that, you've got thousands of lines of code compressed. And what this does, it calls a secure iframe whereby customers can, or essentially it pulls up an iframe for enrolling the card number. And It does so in a secure environment, and it tokenizes the card number in an instance within the iframe. And it sends off that card token and the PAN to the payment providers. From that moment on, all the communication is done purely based on the token. So in this way, because the card number is never exposed to any third party, the partner doesn't have to be PCI compliant. The card number is also never stored anywhere, so it just gets sent off to the source, and from that moment it's being tracked via a token. Here are some of the tools that we provide to our partners. As you can see on the top right there, you've got, that's the developer dashboard, or a view of the developer dashboard. From there, the developers can create their programs, they can manage various programs, they can add locations, merchants, brands. They also track all their cards that are enrolled into the program, and in real time can track their transactions and see how that's performing. On the right, on the left-hand side, you have an interface which is a merchant interface. That's a very simple way for merchants to create offers and submit offers to the various different loyalty operators and publishers that are connected to the network. So as a merchant, if I'm, let's say for argument's sake, Starbucks, I can log on to this interface, create an offer in a few clicks, and then select a partner that should distribute this offer, whether that's British Airways or Perkbox. It doesn't matter. You select the merchant, send that off, and it would get published within their applications. And you also see on the mobile screens there, that's the SDK I was talking about earlier, which essentially is a customizable interface whereby the user can link their card, and that sits within the environment. You can sit in an application, you can sit on a website, you can sit anywhere within the publisher or the loyalty operator's own environment. Here are some of the brands that, or some of the loyalty operators, I would say, that we are powering today. So within a year, we've enabled more than 25 of relatively large, I would say, loyalty programs in UK and other countries. So we started off in the UK and just enabled Nordics and North America a couple of months ago. And as you can see, to provide a little bit of context, on the left-hand corner is Aer Lingus, which is a national airline for Ireland. You also have British Airways there and their Avios program. You see RBC to the left, for instance. They're doing lots of interesting stuff around card linking. That's Royal Bank of Canada. And also you have Klarna to the right, which is a big fintech challenger in the Nordics that are taking over Nordics, I would say, very quickly and growing in the rest of the world. So all of these players are doing very, very interesting stuff around card linking, but it's not all limited to exactly the same use case. They're doing various different types of things that I hope to share with you soon. Klarna, for instance, is using card link data, authorization data, to match that with POS data from the merchants and then deliver receipts to their customers in an instant, digital receipts. And Perkbox to the left, it's an employee benefits, the largest employee benefits program in the UK. Also with millions of employees over there, have created something called local offers. Essentially, they're moving all their vouchers. Everything used to be based on voucher codes in the past. Now they've moved the entire system over from voucher codes into card-linked offers. It's also good to see merchants actually starting to embrace card linking. So here are some of the merchants that we are currently tracking through card linking, and they're all they've all put various types of offers in with those publisher channels that I showed you in the previous screen. Some of these logos you probably already recognize, but for those of you who are not from the UK, for instance, Boots that's the second one to the right. That's the largest pharmaceutical chain in the UK with 2,500 locations. Argos is also a very large retailer, does everything, electronics, hardware, and they've got about 800 locations. Caffè Nero over there, that's also a very, very large coffee chain with about 1,000 locations. So these are significant brands, and we're currently tracking about 400 merchant brands across more than 10,000 locations, and that's within a year. And this is growing. This is growing on a daily basis. So here's what a typical CardLinx journey would look like, the user journey. So as a customer or as a cardholder, this particular example is taken from Perkbox, which is the employee benefits program that I mentioned earlier. They took quite an interesting approach whereby they started using the Facebook Messenger bot instead of building an app. They've now, since then, they've moved into building an app as well, a native app. But this was quite an interesting approach where they started from start to having the product in market took them a couple of weeks. That's it. And they used natural language for calling on the bot. You would type in "show me offers nearby," and it would show that screen all the way to the left over there, and it would show you, based on your location, it would show you different types of offers that are in and around your area right now. You then select the offer, and the second screen there, link, you do that once, right? Once you've done that one more time, you don't have to do it again. But once you want to redeem your offer, you link your card. And this screen right here is our iframe, the iframe that was called by that snippet that I showed you before. And what happens here is that the customer types in the long card number, or they take a picture of their card, and that pulls out the card number, and they link the card. Of course, you see there's a little consent wording there, and the customer needs to opt in to the tracking ability. Now, once they've done that, they then simply walk into the store, make a transaction, and within a second or so, you will receive the real-time notification to say that you have received your reward. In this case, cashback, £3.40 cashback from Perkbox. So our vision has always been to deliver to our partners a very easy way to access financial data. And this is all types of financial data from a consumer's perspective. The more data you receive, the more you can stimulate and spur the innovation. And I'm sure you guys have heard about a recent European directive that's been passed by the European Union called PSD2, so that's the Payment Services Directive 2. What this tells the banks in Europe is essentially a mandate that makes it a legal requirement for the banks in Europe to share financial data or account data from a consumer to a third-party service provider, given obviously subject to consent from the consumer himself. And what this shows is it's a big shift on data where it comes to in principle, if I, as a customer or as a consumer, wants to share the data with a third party, the financial institution should not be the barrier. And it kind of shifts the ownership of the data from the financial institution to the actual consumer. And I think the principle or the idea behind it by the European Union has always been to stimulate competition and drive innovation in that sense. And what this means is, to us, CardLinx data is limited to some extent to data that is future-looking. And also, it's data that from specific merchants. So you link your card, and you pick up data at specific merchants that are participating in the program. Open banking, on the other hand, opens up a whole new world of opportunities, because all of a sudden you can go backwards looking and you can see all the data, account data. And with that, it opens up a whole range of new possibilities whereby you can combine the two and make even greater things for the end user. Some of the stuff that you see quite commonly is personal finance management. By looking into the customer spending behavior, you can start recommending where they should be spending the money, or how they can shift their spend to alternative solutions. There are various types of banking services that are emerging, and you also see within lending it becoming a big thing, whereby you can in an instant make a pretty reliable scoring or assumption of the customer's lending profile. You also see a movement within payments. So not only can you see the customer's data under PSD2, you're also allowed as a payment service, as a payment initiator to initiate payments from one account to another. Now, why am I showing you guys this? Well, this is helping in driving the innovation and the movement towards that final goal of actually being able to unlock financial data to create new types of innovation. And this is something we're doing in the UK, obviously UK being at the forefront of open banking. Even compared to all the European countries, UK is quite advanced. It is something, though, that is being followed by a lot of other countries. So you see Canada, US already starting to lay the framework for how this is going to evolve. All right. Now to the part that I'm sure you all have been waiting for, and that's CLO in Japan. So I'm sure you guys want to know what we have been doing here in terms of, I mentioned early on, to try to establish a bank-agnostic infrastructure for CardLinx in Japan. So we were introduced to the landscape, the CLO landscape in Japan, when we were here in February last year. Silvio kindly invited us to the council to see if there was something we could do to help out. And what we were introduced to was that there's an experience firsthand. There's quite a low card usage in Japan. I believe it's around 20%. But there's a very, very clear goal of increasing that to 40% by 2027. There's also a high on-us processing, which means the data exists in silos, and there's a lack of authorization data as a result. We also see that merchant onboarding could be challenging, or so we were told, that merchant data quality is not quite as good as it could be. And the fourth thing is that one merchant can actually be acquired by multiple merchant acquirers, which is also creates some challenges for us. Now, the last thing here is that we have heard that Japan is expecting 20 million visitors by 2020. That in itself is quite a big number, and obviously shows that there's a big opportunity here if we can get it right. Now, this is what we were introduced to, and we thought that perhaps there is a way we can find out if there's a solution to it. And we've been working closely with our partners, MasterCard, EO, thank you very much for all your efforts so far. And DNP team, Nakane-san and Rick, thank you. They've flown over to London, sat down for days to try to see if we can get this thing going over here in Japan. Now, here is what we've actually tested. Should go back. All right, so for the proof of concept, we are using MasterCard data that is processed, not within, some of the data is processed within the MasterCard network, and obviously all the cross-border and even some of the domestic transactions. That passes through, and DNP has created the interface for enrolling cards and for the merchants to put rewards within. That's how it looks. Now, here are some of the assumptions we had when we started. So can we successfully enable a card link, can we successfully enroll a card in Japan, a Japanese card? And I'm very pleased to say that we have been able to do so with MasterCard support. We have been able to successfully link a Japanese card and for transaction tracking. Now, the second thing that we wanted, that we were unsure about, can we enroll merchants? And the answer is yes. We have been able to enroll local merchants here in Japan without the need of having merchant IDs. Now, the third assumption was, can we receive cross-border transactions in real time? And the answer to that is yes. And that we had assumed, but very good to see that that works very well. And then third is domestic transactions in Japan. How long would it take for us to receive a domestic transaction in Japan? That is something that we're still investigating today, but I'm pleased to say that we have been able to identify every transaction that we have made. And now it's about finding ways of delivering that and measuring exactly how long it takes before that transaction appears. So in terms of next steps, we're now looking to complete our proof of concept, which has been going very well so far. We're looking to expand coverage of transactions, and we will localize the service here and then look at ways of how we can commercialize these things. So Silvio, also, thank you very much for orchestrating the entire proof of concept, and we look forward to sharing the results with you later. Now, to the exciting part. We thought that we're going to be brave and make a live demo for you all so that we can show you a real transaction happening that will come through on the phone and push a real-time notification into the phone. Now, I've got Anna up there in Conrad at the bar. And we are going to make she's waiting there with a MasterCard, and she's going to make a payment, and we've built a mock-up app that will receive the transaction and provide points within this program.
All right. Making a transaction with a MasterCard. She should be ready right now. So I'm just going to change here so maybe we can see her. Okay, so that's my. Oh, thank you. Okay, maybe put it here. You guys can still hear me. All right, we have it there.
It's going to show here only because that's coming from there.
Okay. So that's my phone, which we're going to use to call Anna, which is at the lobby. There she is. There you go. It is happening in real time, so let's see what she's there.
Not answering.
She's
Yeah, she might be drunk by now. Who knows?
Oh, there she
is.
Hello, Anna.
Hello.
So, can you make us a transaction with our MasterCard?
Hi, everyone.
Yeah.
So I'm here
Ready to
at
pay?
the 28 bar.
Okay.
Can you
Cool.
hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, we can.
So,
Go on.
Perfect. I'm here at the 28 bar at the beautiful colored lobby. I have my bill right here.
Okay.
awesome.
And I'll pay with my MasterCard.
Okay.
I don't know if all of you could hear that, but she's basically ordered something at the bar, and she's ready to pay. She's got her bill.
All right. Go on it.
Thank you, the lady behind me.
Okay,
So I had my dose of caffeine. All good.
let's make the payment.
Can you make the payment? Yeah,
Can she hear us?
I think so.
Yes. You can
Okay. Can you make the payment?
Oh, she's making.
Yes?
Is she making it now?
Yes.
Ah,
Okay,
okay.
she's taking. All right, understood.
You can see the lady behind me. Just
Okay.
putting it through now.
There we go.
And here's the transaction.
There, so
in
the
real
notification over there that says Avios,
We're using
that's
our-
from our mock-up application. And basically that triggered that transaction that she just made, the lady behind, triggered that notification and credited us with lots of points at Avios that we can
This is it.
use
Yeah.
later.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Aya. Bye-bye. So this is a real-time cross-border transaction through the MasterCard network. And I can also show you the data. Oh, if you add it here.
Yeah.
The real-time data that we got. So you can see that exactly here. Show you, just gonna reload. So you can see the last transaction right here at 9:57 a.m. And if I open, this is our Fidel dashboard, just capture the transaction. It's showing it now in real time, and you can see the amount. You can see it's a MasterCard, country code Japan in Tokyo, and that it was. You can even see the merchant ID over there that was captured. So this happened that it matched the transaction from MasterCard network to the location data that we have in our dashboard in real time. And here we are. Thank you very much.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Great job. I'm going to give you a high five. Great job.
Thank you.
Great job.
Let me get my.
Dev, I'm just going to ask you to take a seat
Sure.
there, and we're just going to continue in conversation for a few minutes.
Absolutely.
Please have a seat.
Thank you, Sylvia.
That was really exciting.
That was, hey, you never know with live demos, right?
Yes, you never know. You are courageous. You are courageous. So I got to give you a congratulations.
Thank you.
Great job.
Yeah.
For those of you who may not be familiar, over the last year, Dev has been working with DNP and MasterCard to develop this proof of concept. Because as you know, when we came here to the Japanese market about 2 years ago, there was a lot of concern that, well, the data quality is poor, we won't have access to the merchant IDs, we won't be able to board local merchants. Basically, you've proven that it can be done, right?
Absolutely.
So congratulations on that. And for those of you that are members of the CardLinx Association and the Asia Council, we're actually going to be continuing the technical development this afternoon in an Asia Council meeting. But the question I want to ask you, so you guys have a business, a very successful business in the UK. You have a successful business now in the US, and you could have gone to any market in Asia. Why did you pick Japan? What is it that's interesting about Japan, and what is the reason why you decided to put all this investment and work into this particular market?
We like challenges. Now, so the primary reason I would say is all of you here within the organization. I think that sets and shows willingness that there is clearly a desire to get card-linked offers out and into the masses within the economy. And also there's a desire to increase card spend, which is quite clear. And I think all the work that you have been doing here to put this together as well is also a positive factor. And the fact that within the members and within the companies within this room, you have all the ingredients to make this a real success. And that's really the key reason why we thought, you know what, there's something to be done here. And yeah.
Great. So I'm going to ask one more question, and then we've got some microphones. So any of you that want to ask questions directly of Dev, please go ahead and get your questions ready. And we've got a colleague in the back here with a microphone, and I'll just ask you to just identify your company and then state your question. And please feel free to ask the question in English or Japanese. So my next question to you is, you work with many different merchants, many different banks and card issuers, And you have access to a lot of data. So my question is going to be, of all that data that you see, what are some of the key things that you see in terms of consumer behavior that the companies in this room might actually really value? What are some of the key insights that you have developed from accessing all of that data? I mean, we saw all of those impressive brands that you work with. What are some of the key insights?
Yeah, so first and foremost, just a caveat, we don't actually, as a company, analyze the data ourselves, right? So it's mainly for processing and connecting the two parties, and that's what we focus on. But obviously, staying close to our partners, the loyalty operators, we get a lot of insight into what's happening and what's going on. And a few things pops out, and it's a clear correlation. When an offer goes on, transaction spend and frequency goes up. That's a very, very clear correlation. The other thing is that depending on what time of the day the offer comes, you get obviously different success rates. But yeah, that's probably the main thing that I see, and also the type of merchants does impact the success and of the program quite heavily.
And when you say type of merchants, is it the industry or the brand name?
The brand name, how many places, so geographical coverage of that merchant or relevance, is there a merchant near where I am today? And then what's the type of merchants, like a merchant like Boots, for instance, they have such a variety of offers and a variety of products that it drives very, very high transactions, and an offer comes on, it can spike up and almost double up, because that's a merchant that consumers normally make transactions with, and then when an offer comes, they get stimulated to increase their basket and increase their frequency, which is what we want to get to.
Great. Okay, let's go to the audience. One of the key things that is different about our conferences is we have a high level of engagement. So throughout the day, we're going to have multiple speakers, and each one of them we're going to engage in conversation, like Dev and I just did, but also open it up to the audience for questions. So I want to do that now. Any questions from the audience for Dev? We've got a question right here, and if you could just state your name and your company, and please feel free to state the question in English or in Japanese.
じゃあ三井住友カードの同行です。ライブでもおめでとうございます。一つ質問があって、どうしてこういうサービスを
Why do you create this company and then think that you are going to create this company?
You're not wearing an earpiece. Would you mind just repeating the question in English?
Why did you start this business? What is the key point, and so what makes this idea for the past time? This API, providing us with API tools, so matching such a contextual data and so related program.
It was actually not an idea from the beginning that triggered. We actually started as a consumer product. We had a customer engagement platform that helped small to medium-sized merchants to understand their customers better. And on the consumer side, it was an application where you could track your loyalty points, etc. And we were doing this quite successfully for a couple of years, and the mission was really to tackle the lack of data in the offline space, in the brick and mortar space. And we used, at the time, to capture the data, we used QR codes, beacons, Wi-Fi, but none of it was really as seamless as we needed it to be. So we were obviously always comparing it with the online world where the data is readily available. And in the offline world, it was just hard to get that data out. And that's how we started our partnership with MasterCard, in fact, which was our first partner in the space, where we actually approached them and thought, is there another way of extracting this data without the requirement of a customer input or a merchant input, where we can just capture the transactional data or the payment data as it happens and process it all in the background. And MasterCard was quite forthcoming at that stage. And once we had started the implementation work, that's when this whole world opened up, where we actually experienced the pain of integrating and the challenges that it throws at us. And we had to do that same thing over with Visa, and we had to do the same thing with Amex. And we simply just went back and thought, hang on, there is a wealth of information here. Using that wealth of information, you can start creating a wealth of innovation in the market. But this information is not easy to access. So can we make a simpler way for this data to come out? Could we help other third parties create the type of application that we were making at the time, without having to go through the path and the journey that we had to go through? And that's always been the ethos, that's always been the mission. Just make it easier for other third parties to create applications. They should not be focusing on the data connectivity, they should focus on creating the product for the consumer. How can they create a better product, a better day-to-day life for the end user?
Great, great. Any other questions? Okay, Dev, I want to just give you a great hand. Thank you very much. Great job, and you're going to be with us today.